Sara Blakely risked all $5,000 of her savings on a strange clothing problem that began with a pair of scissors. She wanted to wear white pants to a party. Pantyhose made the outfit look smoother, but the feet showed in open-toed shoes, so she cut them off. It worked for about 5 minutes. Then the raw fabric started rolling up her legs. Most people would call that a wardrobe emergency and move on. Blakely kept thinking about it. If she wanted footless control-top pantyhose that stayed in place, surely other women did too. That thought eventually became Spanx. But the interesting part is not spotting the problem. People spot useful problems every day. The interesting part is what she did after the idea stopped feeling clever and started requiring phone calls to strangers who thought it was ridiculous. At the time, Blakely sold fax machines door-to-door in Florida and later Atlanta. This was not warm lead, book-a-demo selling. She walked into offices without an invitation and tried to persuade people to buy a machine they had not asked for. Doors closed. Conversations ended. She got used to hearing no without treating it as a final verdict. That job also made her want another life. She was spending hot days in business clothes, making cold calls, and carrying fax machine brochures. She began keeping a notebook of product ideas. The footless pantyhose fix was the one she could not leave alone. Her savings were about $5,000. That sounds romantic once you know the ending. At the beginning, it is just a very small product development budget. She still had her day job, and she did not tell many people what she was building. She worried that early doubt would talk her out of it before customers ever got a chance to decide. The first obstacle was manufacturing. Blakely called hosiery mills, many of them in North Carolina, and tried to explain the version she wanted but could not find on store shelves. The industry was dominated by men. She was describing an intimate clothing problem they did not personally experience, using technical language she was still learning. The answer was no, then no again. Sometimes the answer was basically, if this is such a good idea, why doesn't it already exist? That question sounds sensible, but it quietly assumes every useful product has already been made. Customers know otherwise. They live with tiny annoyances, homemade fixes, and products designed around somebody else's assumptions. Blakely kept calling. Eventually, one mill owner reconsidered after discussing the idea with his daughters. They told him the idea made sense, and he agreed to help make a prototype. The insight had finally reached someone who could turn it into fabric. Even then, the prototype was not the company. It had to fit. It had to stay put. It had to feel comfortable enough for people to wear. Blakely tested versions herself and asked women she knew to try them. She was not surveying a theoretical market. She was trying to make the thing stop rolling. Then there was the patent. Patent lawyers wanted almost as much money as her entire budget, so she studied the process and wrote most of the application herself. She later paid a lawyer a smaller fee to complete the legal claims. She also worked on the name, the logo, and the packaging. The package mattered more than it might sound. Shapewear could look clinical, beige, and vaguely apologetic. Blakely wanted bright red packaging that felt playful and easy to find. She chose the name Spanx because it was short, sharp, and memorable. Nothing about it whispered medical garment. Now she needed a store. Her sales background became useful again. Blakely got a meeting with a buyer at Neiman Marcus and flew to Dallas. Explaining the product across a desk was not working, so she asked the buyer to come with her to the bathroom. There, she demonstrated the difference under light-colored pants. One look without Spanx, one look with it. It was a strange sales meeting. It was also an effective one. The buyer could see the benefit immediately, and Neiman Marcus agreed to test the product in 7 stores. Getting onto shelves created a new problem. A product can technically be in a store and still be invisible. Blakely called people she knew near the test locations and asked them to go buy Spanx, even offering to reimburse them. She visited stores herself and spoke to sales associates. Glamorous founder mythology this was not. It was retail hand-to-hand combat. She also understood that the demonstration was the marketing. Spanx did not need a lecture about textile engineering. It needed a before and after that took seconds to understand. Then came a giant piece of luck, helped along by preparation. In November 2000, Oprah Winfrey named Spanx one of her favorite things. Suddenly, a brand being pushed store by store had national attention. Blakely still had to supply the demand, but the explanation problem had changed overnight. Millions of potential customers had just seen someone they trusted describe why the product was useful. That moment is often flattened into Oprah made Spanx famous. The endorsement was enormous, but publicity only magnifies what is already there. The product solved a recognizable problem, the name stuck, the package stood out, and the visual proof was simple. Attention arrived to find something ready to sell. Blakely did all this without the usual fashion pedigree. She also built the company without outside investment for its first 21 years. That choice preserved ownership, but it came with pressure. Inventory costs money before customers buy it. Retailers pay on their schedules. A fast-growing product can run out of cash while appearing successful. There is a temptation to turn that into a universal rule. Never raise money, keep every share, do everything yourself. That is not the lesson. Some companies need expensive laboratories, factories, or years of development. Spanx had a different shape. Blakely could keep her salary, start with one focused product, use existing manufacturers, and sell through retailers. Bootstrapping fit this particular business. Staying close to the work also gave her unusually direct feedback. When a buyer looked confused, she could change the pitch. When a package disappeared on a shelf, she could change the color or placement. When a sample rolled up, she knew the product was not finished. There was no committee between the problem and the person making the decision. Spanx later expanded beyond the original footless hosiery into a much broader apparel brand. Expansion sounds easy when the first product has become famous. Usually it is where a clear company gets blurry. Every new item has to answer the same question. Does this solve a problem customers already trust us to understand, or are we just putting the logo on something? The company also benefited from a blind spot. Problems associated with women's clothing are often dismissed as superficial. Yet customers were already spending money, improvising fixes, and complaining to each other. The market did not appear from nowhere. It was hiding inside an annoyance that many decision-makers did not take seriously. That is what makes the factory rejections so revealing. The manufacturers knew hosiery. Blakely knew the wearing experience. Technical expertise mattered, but it did not automatically reveal the unmet need. Sometimes the person cutting up an existing product has information the industry has trained itself not to notice. In 2021, Blackstone bought a majority stake in Spanx in a deal that valued the company at $1.2 billion. Blakely kept a significant ownership stake. That turned the $5,000 experiment into one of the best-known founder stories in consumer products. But she started with $5,000, leaves out the real cost. Years of selling, learning unfamiliar details, risking embarrassment, and doing jobs that did not look like the work of a future billionaire. The scissors were the easy part. What set Blakely apart was her ability to move between two kinds of stubbornness. She was stubborn about the problem. Women wanted a smoother look without visible pantyhose feet. But she was flexible about everything around it. The prototype, the pitch, the package, the store display, the way she explained the benefit. That distinction matters. Being stubborn about every detail makes a founder impossible to help. Being flexible about the core problem makes the product meaningless. Blakely held onto the customer frustration and kept changing the route to the customer. So the Spanx story is not really about discovering a secret billion-dollar idea in a closet. It is about taking an ordinary workaround seriously, then calling a factory, then calling another one, then learning enough patent language not to be helpless, then getting on a plane to make a demonstration in a department store bathroom. None of those steps looked historic while they were happening. They looked awkward, repetitive, and a little desperate. That is often what a company looks like before the polished origin story gets written. What everyday annoyance have people accepted for so long that they barely notice it anymore? Put your best example in the comments. Somewhere, somebody may already be reaching for the scissors.